Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a topic that isn't just eye-opening, it's essential for anyone in a relationship. We'll uncover the personality traits and behaviors that signal higher chances of cheating. These aren't stereotypes, they're grounded in behavioral psychology, and by the end of this episode, you'll have a solid understanding of the types of women more prone to stepping out. So, stay tuned till the end to learn the 7 types of women who often cheat on their partners. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share your experiences in the comments. Let's get into it. Chapter 1: The Thrill Seeker. Some people are driven by an unquenchable thirst for excitement and adrenaline, and for certain women, this craving extends into their relationships. These women are always chasing novelty, and although this sense of thrill can initially make them captivating, it often spirals into risky behaviors that undermine stability. When a relationship reaches a level of consistency, predictability, or feels too normal, the thrill seeker may start to feel trapped, viewing routine as stifling rather than secure. This restlessness often pushes her to search for excitement outside of the relationship, where the rush of something new temporarily fills her need for stimulation. From a psychological perspective, thrill seekers rely on continuous stimulation to feel fulfilled, using the excitement as a kind of natural high that can blur their sense of judgment. This desire for novelty often leads them to downplay the importance of loyalty and commitment, rationalizing their pursuit of new experiences as a means of self-expression or even self-liberation. To them, long-term stability doesn't offer comfort. Instead, it can feel restrictive, like a cage rather than a sanctuary. This feeling of entrapment is often what nudges them toward infidelity, subconsciously equating it with personal freedom. The Stoics believed that true freedom comes not from escaping situations, but from cultivating self-mastery and finding contentment within oneself. For the thrill seeker, however, this lesson is hard to internalize. Her constant desire for stimulation places her in an ongoing battle within a restlessness, making it difficult for her to appreciate the steady, deeper bond that grows from a committed relationship. To the thrill seeker, the grass always appears greener on the other side, as she continues her chase for the next big thrill. Chapter 2: The Overly Charming Social Butterfly. The overly charming social butterfly is one of the most captivating personalities around. She's confident, engaging, and seemingly radiates a magnetic energy that draws people in. Her social skills make her the life of any gathering, always surrounded by people who are eager to bask in her warmth and charm. Her partner may initially find this irresistible. After all, being with someone who lights up a room can be exhilarating. However, her charming nature isn't reserved exclusively for her partner. Her outgoing personality, coupled with a desire for social interaction, can create challenges in maintaining boundaries, and if she doesn't receive the validation she craves within her relationship, she may seek it elsewhere. Psychologically, the social butterfly is often driven by a need for external affirmation. This desire for validation fuels her confidence, and she thrives on the attention that others give her. Social gatherings and interactions become sources of energy, where each compliment or laugh from others serves to reinforce her self-worth. Her interactions may begin innocently enough. She's just being herself, effortlessly engaging and outgoing. Yet, her natural flirtation and charisma can quickly blur boundaries. In her mind, these exchanges might appear harmless, but over time, they can create situations where admiration and attention from others start to feel more rewarding than the commitment she has with her partner. This sets up a fragile dynamic, where her need for attention might lead her down a path of emotional or physical infidelity if her partner isn't able to provide the level of validation she craves. For the social butterfly, being the center of attention is often more than just a preference, it's a source of self-esteem. Unlike those who are content with solitary reflection or private validation, the social butterfly's sense of self relies heavily on others. When people are attentive, appreciative, and intrigued by her, she feels uplifted and complete. However, when this attention fades or if she feels undervalued in her relationship, it can create an emptiness that she struggles to fill on her own. This is where the danger of her need for validation comes into play. Rather than seeking reassurance within her relationship, she might be tempted to seek admiration from others, creating scenarios that can lead to flirtation or even infidelity. In social situations, the social butterfly may have difficulty discerning between innocent friendliness and flirtation. Her vibrant energy and desire to connect with others mean that she's often unaware of how her behavior might be interpreted by those around her. A compliment or a laugh here, a casual touch or lingering eye contact there, all of these interactions may seem harmless to her. But to those on the receiving end, her actions can easily be perceived as flirtatious, creating a foundation for attraction and potential complications. For her partner, this behavior can feel uncomfortable, especially if he perceives her interactions with others as crossing boundaries. Her charisma and ability to form connections quickly make her appealing, but they can also create vulnerability in her relationship. The Stoics believed that true confidence and self-worth come from within, unaffected by the opinions and reactions of others. The social butterfly, however, hasn't fully embraced this concept. Her sense of identity is tied to how others perceive her, making her susceptible to attention outside of her relationship. If she doesn't feel adequately admired by her partner, she may unconsciously seek that validation elsewhere, often without realizing the potential consequences. This constant need for external affirmation creates an underlying tension, as her partner might feel he's competing with her need for attention. For the social butterfly, monogamous relationships can feel limiting because they require a focus on one person rather than the multitude of interactions she finds so invigorating. In a committed relationship, her partner might initially be drawn to her charisma, but over time, her need for validation can lead to misunderstandings and a sense of insecurity. He may feel that her attention is divided, or worse, that is not enough to satisfy her desire for admiration. The social butterfly might interpret his concerns as possessiveness, failing to understand the impact her behavior has on the relationship's stability. For her, these interactions are simply part of who she is, and she doesn't see them as crossing any lines. Yet, the line between social engagement and flirtation can become blurry, especially when she's seeking affirmation from others to fill emotional needs that aren't being met within her relationship. Her reliance on external validation often makes it difficult for her to experience true emotional intimacy. Since her self-worth is partially built on how others view her, she may struggle to invest deeply in one person. For the social butterfly, being adored by many is easier than the vulnerability required to connect deeply with one. This need to be admired can create distance in her relationship, as she finds herself drawn to interactions that make her feel wanted and valued by multiple people rather than building a singular, profound connection. This dynamic makes it challenging for her to settle fully into a committed relationship, as the allure of new social connections remains tempting. Her partner, on the other hand, might feel as though he's constantly trying to keep up or prove his worth to someone who seems to value the attention of many over the loyalty of one. Over time, he may start to feel sidelined, as her need for external validation takes precedence over the emotional closeness they share. For him, this can create a sense of isolation within the relationship, leading him to question his place in her life. In some cases, he may even begin to resent her need for attention, viewing it as a form of emotional infidelity. The Stoics would encourage the social butterfly to seek validation from within, embracing her own self-worth without relying on others' admiration. By grounding herself in inner confidence, she could shift her focus from external praise to genuine connection. This inner strength would enable her to find fulfillment in her relationship without the constant need for external affirmation. True self-worth, according to Stoic philosophy, comes from within, unshaken by the opinions or reactions of others. If the social butterfly continues to depend on external admiration, however, her relationships may remain tenuous. Without addressing her need for validation, she risks jeopardizing her connection with her partner, leaving him feeling undervalued and uncertain. Her charismatic nature, while initially enchanting, can ultimately prevent her from forming the deep bonds she may desire. To create lasting intimacy, the social butterfly must recognize the difference between admiration from others and true connection with her partner. Only by fostering her self-worth independently can she find stability in a relationship that's rooted in mutual trust and respect, rather than fleeting validation from those around her. Chapter 3. The Always the Victim Type. The always the victim type of woman perpetually sees herself as a casualty in life situations, projecting blame onto others while shirking any accountability. This pattern isn't merely an occasional lapse in judgment, it's a consistent worldview. For her, life's challenges are always someone else's fault, never her own responsibility. If she finds herself dissatisfied in her relationship, rather than examining her own role or taking steps to communicate her needs, she shifts the blame onto her partner. If she cheats, she rationalizes her actions as an understandable reaction to her partner's perceived shortcomings or failures, thus maintaining her victim status. Psychologically, this behavior is rooted in a lack of self-awareness. Instead of embracing personal responsibility, she has developed a deeply ingrained habit of shifting blame. Her narrative becomes that of a perpetual martyr, one who has been unfairly treated and is justified in doing whatever it takes to feel validated. This mindset not only erodes trust within the relationship, but also creates an environment where her partner feels perpetually wrong, always needing to appease her or make amends for perceived slights. This constant deflection undermines the very foundations of a healthy partnership, where accountability and open communication are key. In a relationship with a victim-type partner, trust is a fragile element, constantly tested by her need to deflect and redirect. This inability to take responsibility can manifest in various ways. Perhaps she hints that she deserves better, suggests her partner isn't attentive enough, or accuses him of failing to meet her needs. Each of these justifications becomes a reason for her to act out, including potentially cheating. In her eyes, her partner's failures have forced her hand, so she feels little to no remorse. Her behavior isn't about seeking an external connection, it's about finding validation and justification outside the relationship while keeping her hands clean of guilt. From the Stoic perspective, this approach is deeply flawed. The Stoics believed in the power of self-reflection and the importance of taking ownership of one's actions. They taught that true strength lies in facing our own shortcomings, understanding them, and using that awareness as a foundation for growth. Yet, the victim type avoids self-examination entirely, perpetually casting herself as the wrong party. Her lack of introspection not only prevents her from growing, but also undermines the potential for a healthy, balanced relationship. Rather than learning from past experiences, she constructs narratives where she is consistently wronged, a habit that corrodes trust and deepens emotional rifts. The partner of a victim type often finds himself walking on eggshells, feeling as though he must overcompensate to avoid her criticism or accusations. He may feel compelled to apologize for issues that are not his fault or cater to her needs excessively, hoping to avoid her sense of dissatisfaction. This creates an unhealthy dynamic, where he feels overly responsible for her emotions and continually tries to appease her, even when her complaints lack substance. The imbalance that results is exhausting, as he is forced into a role of caretaker rather than equal partner. In time, he may find himself feeling as though nothing he does is ever enough to satisfy her. For the victim type, infidelity is a means to reinforce her view of herself as someone who is underappreciated or wronged. Rather than viewing cheating as a betrayal, she reframes it as something she had to do because her partner wasn't fulfilling her needs. If confronted, she might emphasize her dissatisfaction within the relationship, making her partner feel as though her actions were his fault. This pattern of blame deflection not only deflects accountability but also twists the narrative, leaving her partner to question his own role and potentially shoulder unwarranted guilt. At the heart of her behavior lies an inability to confront her own insecurities. By consistently portraying herself as a victim, she is able to avoid the hard work of self-reflection. Confronting her own shortcomings would mean facing uncomfortable truths about her role in the relationship's struggles. However, her reluctance to do so only ensures that she remains trapped in this cycle, unable to experience genuine growth or satisfaction in any relationship. The victim mentality ultimately prevents her from developing true intimacy, as she continually distances herself from personal responsibility, opting instead to project her dissatisfaction outward. For her partner, this dynamic is both disorienting and damaging. When faced with a partner who refuses to accept accountability, he may feel trapped, constantly trying to compensate for perceived inadequacies. Over time, he may internalize her accusations, leading to feelings of guilt and self-doubt. His attempts to make her happy become futile, as no amount of effort can satisfy someone who continually believes that the world is against her. In the end, the relationship is built on an unstable foundation, as her partner finds himself continually placating her, while she evades any form of responsibility. The Stoics would view the victim type's mindset as a profound failure to cultivate internal strength. According to Stoic teachings, we are responsible for our own happiness and inner peace, which cannot be outsourced to others or justified by external circumstances. To live a truly fulfilling life, one must take ownership of one's thoughts and actions, learning from mistakes and seeking to grow. The victim type, however, rejects these principles, instead choosing to blame others and avoid personal accountability. By constantly casting herself as the victim, she sacrifices both personal growth and the potential for a genuinely fulfilling relationship. In essence, the victim type's infidelity isn't just an act of betrayal, it's a manifestation of her deeply rooted insecurities and lack of self-awareness. By refusing to take responsibility, she undermines not only her partner's trust, but also her own ability to experience a fulfilling connection. The blame-shifting, deflecting, and refusal to self-reflect create a toxic dynamic that prevents her from ever achieving true contentment. Until she confronts her own mindset, she will continue to see herself as a passive recipient of life's injustices, rather than an active participant capable of growth and change. For her partner, understanding this dynamic can be both liberating and painful. Recognizing that her behavior stems from her own unresolved insecurities can provide clarity, yet the realization also underscores the challenges of maintaining a relationship with someone unwilling to accept accountability. Ultimately, the victim type's behavior is a reminder of the importance of self-awareness and personal responsibility in building trust and intimacy. Without these qualities, no relationship can truly thrive, and the victim type's pattern of behavior will only continue, leaving both partners feeling unfulfilled and disconnected. Chapter 4: The Revenge Type. The revenge type represents one of the most complex and potentially dangerous dynamics in relationships, as her acts of infidelity are driven not by momentary passion, but by an intense, calculated desire to inflict pain. Unlike impulsive types, who might stray in moments of vulnerability or weakness, the revenge type's motives are rooted in anger and resentment. When she perceives herself as slighted, wronged, or neglected, she sees betrayal as her means of justice. Her actions aren't spontaneous or regretful, they're premeditated, intended to deliver a sharp blow that, in her mind, evens the score. This mindset is uniquely destructive. For the revenge type, infidelity isn't about finding connection or filling an emotional void, it's a weapon she wields to regain a sense of control or power in the relationship. If she perceives her partner as having wronged her, be it through neglect, criticism, or even minor conflicts, her instinct may be to retaliate rather than address the issues directly. She's not interested in resolving tension, she wants her partner to feel the hurt she believes he's caused. Often, these perceived offenses are rooted in her own sense of insecurity or unfulfilled expectations, which she may have never communicated openly. Instead, she internalizes her grievances and silently formulates a response, creating a ticking time bomb of resentment. The Stoic approach to conflict, which values understanding and constructive dialogue, stands in stark contrast to the revenge-type strategy. The Stoics taught that we are ultimately responsible for our own reactions, that emotional disturbances are best addressed through calm introspection and communication. Yet, for the revenge type, introspection isn't part of the equation. She views her partner's perceived failures or transgressions as justification to lash out, often disregarding the long-term damage her actions may cause. She is willing to risk the entire relationship for a momentary sense of victory, believing that causing her partner pain will somehow validate her anger or restore her sense of equilibrium. Her actions are fueled by a desire for control, but ironically, they leave her further distanced from any real resolution. What makes the revenge type's infidelity particularly painful is the premeditation behind it. Her actions aren't the result of a fleeting attraction or a mistake she instantly regrets. Instead, she may go to great lengths to plan her betrayal, choosing both the timing and circumstances to maximize the impact. She might seek out an affair at a moment when her partner is least prepared to cope with it, or she may choose someone he knows or suspects, amplifying the betrayal. This deliberate, calculated approach can be emotionally devastating for her partner, who often finds himself blindsided, believing the relationship was on stable ground. For him, discovering her infidelity is a jarring realization that the person he trusted has been actively working against him, plotting to use his trust as a means to deliver a personal vendetta. What drives the revenge type's behavior is often her inability to process and communicate her emotions in a constructive manner. Rather than expressing her dissatisfaction or working toward a mutual understanding, she opts to harbor resentment. Her perception of injustice may grow over time, fueled by unresolved issues that she never shared with her partner. In many cases, these grievances are exaggerated or even imagined, as she interprets his actions, or lack thereof, as deliberate attempts to hurt her. This imaginary scale she uses to measure the relationship becomes unbalanced in her mind, prompting her to take matters into her own hands and restore what she believes is a fair distribution of power. However, her tactics only create further conflict, driving a deeper wedge between them and preventing any genuine chance for healing or mutual growth. For her partner, being with a revenge type is like navigating a minefield. Every conflict or disagreement carries the hidden potential to trigger her need for retribution. Her actions are both unpredictable and deeply unsettling, as he realizes that any misstep, however minor, could provoke a response meant to hurt him. This emotional volatility leaves him constantly on edge, unsure of her intentions and unable to trust her reactions. Her betrayal is not a temporary lapse in judgment, but a calculated decision that stems from a fundamental disconnect in how she views commitment and accountability. While he may see their relationship as a shared journey built on trust, she views it as a battlefield where perceived wrongs must be avenged. Ultimately, the revenge type's approach to relationships is self-destructive. By choosing to escalate rather than communicate, she creates a toxic cycle of resentment and retaliation. Her actions reflect her inability to find internal peace or confront her emotions directly, making genuine intimacy nearly impossible. She remains trapped in a pattern of grievance and vengeance, where each act of retaliation only reinforces her dissatisfaction and insecurity. Over time, this behavior undermines her own happiness, as well as the stability of any relationship she enters. The initial satisfaction she feels from getting even fades quickly, leaving her with the hollow realization that her actions have pushed her further from the closeness and respect she desires. In the end, the revenge type's infidelity is a form of self-sabotage, an attempt to address inner conflicts by lashing out externally. By using betrayal as her weapon, she creates a cycle of hurt that ultimately harms herself as much as her partner. Her actions demonstrate a profound disconnect from the Stoic wisdom that peace and resilience come from mastering our responses to challenges, not from retaliating against those we believe have wronged us. If she could channel her energy toward understanding her own emotional needs and communicate them openly, she might break free from this destructive cycle. But until she learns to face her insecurities and resolve conflicts constructively, the revenge type will remain caught in a web of her own making, a pattern that drives her further from meaningful connection and authentic contentment. Chapter 5. The Two Independent Type. Independence is indeed a magnetic quality, often signaling confidence and self-sufficiency, but there is a version of independence that can become a barrier to authentic intimacy. The two independent type of woman may use her independence not as an expression of self-assurance, but as a shield to keep others at a distance. While she might appear strong and autonomous, this need for extreme independence often arises from a fear of dependency. Her independence is less about embracing her own strength and more about avoiding vulnerability at all costs. This mindset leads her to keep others emotionally at arm's length, which, over time, can diminish her commitment to a relationship. Her desire to protect her freedom creates an internal resistance to deep emotional bonding. While she may engage in a relationship, she is often reluctant to fully open up, fearful that closeness could compromise her autonomy. Rather than seeing intimacy as an opportunity to connect, she views it as something that threatens her independence. This guardedness doesn't typically come from a place of strength, but from an underlying insecurity about losing control. She fears that attachment might weaken her sense of self, which leads her to compartmentalize her relationships, never fully letting her partner in. This emotional distance can be bewildering for her partner, who may sense her detachment but not fully understand its roots. Psychologically, the two independent woman often perceives relationships as threats to her freedom. To her, closeness feels like a risk, an obligation that may require her to give up aspects of her individuality. This aversion to vulnerability often manifests as a conscious or subconscious effort to maintain distance, keeping her partner from fully integrating into her life. In doing so, she inadvertently rationalizes behaviors that prioritize her independence, including actions that might hurt her partner. This rationalization can extend to infidelity, which she may see as a way to reaffirm her autonomy, ensuring that she's never too reliant on one person. The Stoics believed in the concept of freedom through inner mastery, understanding that true autonomy doesn't come from isolating oneself from connections, but from cultivating self-control and resilience. To the Stoics, independence was about freeing oneself from external validation and desires rather than escaping emotional connection. The two independent type, however, has a different approach. She prioritizes her independence to such an extent that it overrides any chance for true intimacy. She may become comfortable with superficial connections, as these relationships don't challenge her independence, but she struggles to allow her partner into her inner world. For her, attachment feels less like a bond and more like a potential trap, which often drives her to pursue outlets that reaffirm her control over her own life. For her partner, this emotional distance can be disorienting, even painful. The two independent woman's reluctance to fully engage creates a gap in the relationship, leading her partner to feel excluded and undervalued. Her partner might perceive this detachment as a lack of love or investment, although her behavior is more about self-preservation than rejection. The partner's attempts to bridge the gap may only reinforce her desire to keep her distance, as she interprets these efforts as potential intrusions on her autonomy. The resulting dynamic is often frustrating and confusing, as her partner is left to grapple with an unclear boundary between closeness and detachment. Her insistence on independence can lead her to justify behaviors that would seem disloyal in other contexts. Because she doesn't feel as emotionally anchored to her partner, she may rationalize her actions as simply exercising her autonomy rather than committing a betrayal. This mindset allows her to maintain a sense of freedom, even if it strains the relationship. In her view, these actions are not necessarily about dissatisfaction with her partner, but about preserving her sense of self. Her need to remain unattached is so strong that it can drive her to seek attention outside the relationship, viewing these experiences as a means of protecting her identity rather than as a violation of commitment. For the too independent woman, personal autonomy is the priority, and this often becomes a self-imposed limitation on her relationships. She may see her independence as a non-negotiable aspect of her identity, a quality that she believes defines her strength. Yet, this approach restricts her ability to experience true connection, as her emphasis on autonomy prevents her from fully engaging with her partner. She fears that allowing herself to be vulnerable would somehow diminish her strength, not realizing that vulnerability is essential to genuine intimacy and growth. Ultimately, this type of independence can be self-defeating. By keeping herself closed off, she avoids the profound experiences that only come with openness and trust. Her partner's attempts to connect may be met with resistance, as she interprets these gestures as challenges to her freedom rather than expressions of love. Her actions, although intended to protect her sense of self, often lead to feelings of isolation within the relationship, and the constant need to affirm her independence can create a pattern of emotional distance and even infidelity. This form of independence becomes a prison of her own making, limiting her potential for true connection and the deeper happiness that can only come from allowing herself to be fully seen and understood. Chapter 6: The Validation Seeker. The validation seeker is a type of woman who is constantly on the lookout for external approval, and this need for affirmation can extend far beyond simple friendliness or casual appreciation. She doesn't just enjoy positive feedback, she actively relies on it, often finding herself compelled to seek out admiration from multiple sources. Her need for validation is insatiable, and one person's praise, even from her partner, rarely fills the void. This endless hunger for attention often drives her to seek reassurance from her social circles, professional networks, or anywhere she believes she can find affirmation. At the root of this behavior is often a deep-seated insecurity. Rather than feeling confident in who she is, she looks to others to validate her self-worth. She might be charming and magnetic, easily attracting attention, but this is not a simple case of friendliness. Her actions stem from a need to fill an emotional gap, a longing for approval that her partner alone can't seem to satisfy. The more she relies on external sources to feel valuable, the more likely she is to blur the lines between platonic admiration and romantic interest, which can ultimately erode her loyalty and lead her down a path of flotation or even infidelity. Validation seekers often find it challenging to differentiate between admiration and romantic interest, and this ambiguity can be dangerous for a committed relationship. As she seeks reassurance from others, she may begin to develop bonds outside her relationship, bonds that fulfill her need for attention. These connections often start innocently enough, but her consistent need for validation can shift the dynamic, pushing her further away from her partner. This isn't always a conscious choice. She's not necessarily planning to deceive or hurt anyone. However, her reliance on others' approval often blinds her to the impact her actions have on her relationship. The Stoics taught that true confidence is self-derived, a concept that the validation seeker struggles with. For the Stoics, independence and self-worth were anchored in one's inner values and principles, not in the opinions of others. A secure person draws strength from within and seeks validation only from their core beliefs and actions. The validation seeker, however, hasn't yet learned this lesson. She mistakenly believes that external praise will fill her self-doubt, but the fleeting nature of external validation only deepens her need for more. She becomes entangled in a cycle of seeking out new sources of attention, never fully content with what she receives, because it doesn't address the root of her insecurity. This constant need for approval can put her in a position where boundaries blur, making her vulnerable to flirtation or even emotional infidelity. It's not just about feeling attractive or desirable, it's about seeking significance through others' attention. She craves that feeling of being valued, and if her partner's validation begins to feel routine or less enthusiastic over time, she may start seeking that emotional boost elsewhere. This path is a slippery slope, as it leads her to continually seek out those who are willing to provide her with the reassurance she craves, creating a cycle of dependency on external sources of validation. The validation seeker's behavior is ultimately self-sabotaging, as it erodes the trust and intimacy necessary for a stable relationship. Her desire to feel appreciated by others not only affects her partner's sense of security, but also prevents her from experiencing true fulfillment and connection. By relying on others to make her feel valuable, she misses the opportunity to develop an internal sense of worth, which is the only form of validation that truly lasts. Without learning to validate herself, she's likely to repeat this pattern, leading to dissatisfaction in any relationship she enters. This journey to self-worth is a difficult one, and for the validation seeker, it requires a deep commitment to introspection and self-acceptance. Real fulfillment won't come from a new admirer or the next round of applause. It will come from understanding and accepting her intrinsic value, independent of others' opinions. Only then can she break free from the cycle of seeking approval and become capable of building a meaningful, lasting relationship rooted in genuine connection rather than the fleeting high of external praise. Chapter 7. The Escapist. The escapist woman often views commitment not as a space for growth or comfort, but as a restriction, something that holds her back from a world she imagines is more exciting or fulfilling. For her, when challenges or routines emerge, she doesn't see these as opportunities to strengthen the relationship, but as signs of stagnation or boredom. Rather than facing these obstacles and seeking resolution, she may begin to look outward, feeling drawn to new experiences or fresh faces. She romanticizes the unknown and idealizes the thrill of something new as a means of escape, forming attachments outside her relationship that allow her to mentally and emotionally detach. Escapists frequently lack healthy coping mechanisms for dealing with the natural ebb and flow of a committed relationship, avoiding conversations about conflict or addressing underlying issues with their partner. Instead, they often prefer to start over, believing a clean slate is more liberating than working through what they see as the mundane difficulties of long-term commitment. This mindset blinds her to the reality that no relationship is free from challenges. Each new connection is exciting in the beginning, but without commitment, it inevitably cycles back to the same struggles, as no escape will deliver the fulfillment she's seeking. The Stoics taught that true resilience and strength come from being fully present and committed to facing life's challenges, understanding that discomfort is part of growth. They believed that enduring the discomfort of stability builds character and depth, while avoiding problems only fosters dissatisfaction. The escapist, however, resists this growth, using infidelity as a form of distraction or a way to temporarily ease her discontent. For her, a new connection is an escape hatch, not necessarily because she seeks another person, but because she yearns for freedom from the demands of emotional intimacy. What's more, the escapist mindset often leads her into a cycle of superficial relationships, preventing her from truly experiencing the depth and intimacy that come with working through difficulties with a partner. Her approach ultimately sabotages her relationship's potential and prevents her from building genuine, lasting connections. Her instinct to avoid any situation that challenges her idea of comfort results in a constant search for temporary highs rather than lasting fulfillment. This cycle is exhausting not only for her partner, who senses her emotional absence, but for herself, as each new start ultimately returns her to the same unmet needs and lack of satisfaction. The escapist woman's pattern of seeking novelty over stability is not about the pursuit of love or genuine connection, but a reluctance to face the reality of commitment. It's a form of self-sabotage, where she chooses the illusion of freedom over the true liberation that comes from working through life's trials. Her attraction to escapism prevents her from realizing that true freedom is not found in constant detachment, but in learning to be grounded within herself, independent of the highs and lows of external attachments. This tendency ultimately leaves her emotionally adrift, as she repeatedly avoids rather than engages, leaving her on the periphery of true connection. So there you have it, the 7 types of women more likely to stray in relationships. Remember, understanding these traits isn't about placing blame or feeling resentment. It's about gaining insight to help you build healthier, more authentic relationships. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and share your experiences if you've come across these types. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more eye-opening psychology insights.